The first thing you notice isn't the sound, it's the weight of expectation. Before the engine turns, before the dash wakes up, before a single wheel moves, the Suzuki GSX S1000GT Hybrid already carries something heavier than fuel or batteries or aluminum. It carries a question, a quiet one, the kind that only riders hear. What does sport touring become when the future finally arrives? Because this bike doesn't announce itself as a revolution.
Yes!
It's there, poised, sharp-lined and restrained, like it knows something you don't yet. Like it understands that the next era of motorcycling isn't about noise alone, it's about intention. And as you stand there looking at it, really looking, you realize Suzuki hasn't built a hybrid motorcycle to chase trends. They've built it because long rides are changing, riders are changing, the roads are changing, and the silence between the corners is starting to matter just as much as the corners themselves. This GSX-S 1000 GT Hybrid doesn't feel like a compromise. It feels like a conversation. You remember the first time you rode something fast and civilized at the same time? That strange duality. The way your body relaxed while your pulse stayed high. That's always been the magic of sport touring when it's done right. And Suzuki understands that balance in a way that only comes from decades of building motorcycles that were never trying to impress anyone except the rider holding the bars. This machine feels like it was shaped by long nights in engineering rooms, sure, but also by quiet early morning rides when the road belongs only to you. It carries the DNA of the GSX lineage, that unmistakable sense of mechanical honesty. But now, there's something layered into it, something almost thoughtful. The hybrid system isn't there to replace the engine's soul, it's there to sharpen it. The first twist of the throttle doesn't explode, it doesn't snap, it flows. There's a softness right at the beginning, a smoothness that feels intentional, almost polite. Electric assistance fills the moment before combustion fully wakes, and in that fraction of a second, the bike feels lighter than it should, more eager. Like it's leaning into your command instead of reacting to it. In city traffic, this matters more than horsepower ever could. You're rolling through narrow streets, the kind with patched asphalt and uneven manholes, where bikes are judged not by top speed, but by how calmly they move through chaos. The GSX S1000 GT Hybrid glides here. The low-speed control is uncanny. Heat management feels smarter. Throttle inputs are precise without being nervous. You're not fighting the bike, you're guiding it. And in those moments, when traffic lights flick from red to green, when pedestrians blur past, when rain slicks the road just enough to keep you honest, you feel something unexpected. Relief. Relief that performance no longer has to mean tension. Relief that technology, for once, is working quietly in the background instead of demanding your attention. Relief that this bike isn't trying to turn every ride into a race. It's trying to turn every ride into something you want to remember. Out on the open road, the story changes, but gently. The engine breathes deeper. The hybrid assist fades into the background, and now the familiar Suzuki inline-4 character begins to surface. Smooth, linear, confident. That unmistakable mechanical whir layered under a restrained growl. Never obnoxious, never dull. You roll on the throttle at highway speeds and feel the bike stretch. Not surge, stretch. Like a long stride rather than a sprint. Wind protection settles around your helmet, the fairing doing its work without drama. Your shoulders relax, your grip loosens. You could stay here for hours. And that's the point. This isn't a motorcycle that begs you to ride harder. It invites you to ride longer. Somewhere between towns, with the road bending lazily through open countryside, you start to understand the emotional intelligence of this machine. The suspension doesn't shout feedback, it whispers it. You feel the surface through the bars, through the seat, through your boots, but never in a way that exhausts you. Just enough to keep you connected. Just enough to remind you that you're riding, not floating. The hybrid system becomes invisible now. Not because it's gone, but because it's doing exactly what it's supposed to. Enhancing without interrupting. Supporting without overshadowing. It's the kind of technology that respects tradition instead of erasing it. And if you're enjoying this ride so far, if this kind of deep, honest motorcycle storytelling speaks to you, take a quiet second to like the video, maybe leave a comment about your favorite long-distance machine, and subscribe to SuperBike Intelligence. Not because it helps the algorithm, though it does, but because it keeps conversations like this alive. As the road begins to climb, the corners tighten, the air cools. Mountains always do that, they strip away distractions. Here, the GSX-S1000GT Hybrid reveals another side of itself. Not aggressive, not playful in the way a naked bike might be, but precise, calm, unshakable. You lean in and the bike follows without hesitation, no delay, no argument. The chassis feels composed, almost reassuring, like it's saying, "I've got you. Just keep looking ahead." Mid-corner stability is the kind that builds trust fast. You don't think about the weight, you don't think about the technology, you think about lines, about rhythm, about breathing. There's always a moment, when the road opens just enough for a brief roll-on, and the bike answers with quiet authority. Not a scream, not a punch. A steady, confident pull that reminds you this is still a GSX at heart. This is performance that doesn't demand attention. It rewards patience. As the sun begins to drop, shadows stretch across the asphalt. The world slows. The GSX-S1000GT Hybrid seems to thrive here, in this in-between hour where light softens and thoughts wander. The dash glows gently, controls fall easily to hand. You don't fumble, you don't search. Everything feels exactly where it should be. Night riding has a way of exposing flaws. Bad ergonomics become pain. Poor lighting becomes fear. Inconsistent throttle becomes stress. But this bike settles into the darkness like it was designed for it. The headlight cuts clean through the night. The engine hums with quiet assurance. The hybrid assist smooths transitions when fatigue might otherwise creep in. You ride on. Rain finds you eventually. It always does. Light at first, then steady. The road turns reflective, mirrors of broken light stretching into the distance. And here is where this motorcycle earns its place. Traction control doesn't intrude. It supports. Throttle response stays calm. The bike remains predictable, composed, almost comforting. You don't rush. You don't tense up. You trust. And trust is the most valuable currency a motorcycle can earn. Somewhere in that rain, with water beating on your visor and the world reduced to sensation and sound, you realize something important. This GSX S1000GT Hybrid isn't trying to redefine what a motorcycle is. It's redefining how a motorcycle feels over time. It understands fatigue. It understands mood. It understands that not every ride is about proving something. Sometimes it's about processing life, about letting the miles absorb thoughts you don't yet have words for. Suzuki has always been good at this kind of honesty. They've never been the loudest voice in the room. They've never chased hype for its own sake. And this bike, this hybrid sport tourer, feels like a continuation of that philosophy into a future that many riders are still unsure about. Hybrid. The word still makes some people uneasy. It carries assumptions, doubts. But on the road, those doubts fade quickly. Because what matters isn't what's powering the rear wheel. What matters is how you feel when you arrive. And when you finally stop, engine ticking softly as it cools, rain dripping from the fairing, helmet coming off slowly, you don't feel wrung out. You don't feel overstimulated. You feel complete. Like the ride gave you exactly what you needed, even if you didn't know what that was when you started. That's not engineering alone. That's understanding riders. If you've ever loved a motorcycle, not for its spec sheet, but for the way it stayed with you long after the ride ended, then you already understand what Suzuki is aiming for here. This isn't about chasing the loudest future. It's about shaping a quieter, smarter one. And as motorcycling evolves through electrification, hybridization, changing cities, changing riders, machines like the GSX S1000GT Hybrid feel less like experiments and more like bridges. Between eras, between expectations, between who we were as riders and who we're becoming. If this story resonates with you, if you see yourself in these moments, make sure you're subscribed to SuperBike Intelligence. This channel exists for riders who feel motorcycles as much as they ride them. Because the future of motorcycling won't belong to the fastest or the loudest. It will belong to the machines that understand us. And the Suzuki GSX-S1000GT Hybrid feels like it understands. Not by shouting, but by listening.